Eldoret hoye! Eldoret TV! Vijana viva! Comrades power! Thank you. Aya. So, you will allow me first to make my official speech. Alafu ndachukua muda kidogo sana. I speak off the cuff. Alafu nitamalizia hapo. Mmeniruhusu? Asante. So representatives from the University Students Association, esteemed student members, members of the business community, members of the Bunge la Wananchi, Member of Parliament for Keses constituency, my friend, professional colleague and brother Julius Ruto, my two principal secretaries, the county commissioner, ambaye leo sisi ni wageni wake, the county government led by the county secretary and members of county assembly represented here, other distinguished guests, wafanyikazi wa serikali ya juu na ya county. Kuna mtu nimewanja nje? Jua kali sector, Bunge la Wananchi, the business community. Wacha nimalizie kusema distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon. First, I want to make it clear that this process that we are undertaking today, this engagement, is not an academic exercise. We have deliberately made a decision as National Treasury to engage the public. When I got into this office, I made a promise to the people of Kenya that I'm going to demystify what National Treasury is all about and make it an institution that interacts with the people we serve, because we work for you. And therefore, the exercise that we are carrying out today, which began from Migori, is going to cover 7 regions of this country if you leave out Nairobi. But we are going to have 8 engagements. For Nyanza region, we had the engagement in Migori. For the Western region, yesterday we were in Kakamega. Today we are here for the North Rift region because Rift Valley is very expansive. From here, we will have engagement in Nakuru for the South and Central Rift. And then I will proceed to Kiambu for the Central region. Lastly, we will have the last leg, which will begin from Garissa for the Northern Kenya region. We go to Kilifi for the Coast region. And finally, we will end with Meru for the Eastern region. During these engagements, we will be listening to Kenyans, especially the young people, because the youth form 75% of our population. That is a population that you cannot ignore. That is a population that you must engage and listen to continuously to adjust your policies and adjust your programs to fit in the interest of that segment of our population. Allow me to mention the following. That I want to start by extending to you a warm welcome to this stakeholder engagement forum. And I wish to thank you all for finding time to attend this very critical event that provides us with an opportunity to share our views on the management of public resources in the country, and particularly in the budget process, more so as it relates to our development agenda. This process builds up onto not only from the meeting that I held on the 10th of December 2025 in Nairobi, where I launched the National Budget Students Forum with the sole purpose of embedding a youth-centric perspective into our national economic decision-making processes, but it's also from my previous engagements with Bunge la Wananchi on budget process. I'm sure you still remember my engagement at Jivanji Garden last year. And that engagement proceeded or went on to Mombasa, and we even held an engagement in Kibra at night to just discuss our public policy issues as regarding the budget making process. So during this launch, which took place on 10th of December, it was agreed on the need for a wider engagement with the youth of this country in their respective regions on matters pertaining to public finance management. But further to that, further to engaging with the youth, in view of the recent government efforts on privatization, it has also been deemed fit to broaden this engagement to include the business community and the Bunge la Wananchi for a more comprehensive stakeholder information and participation. That is why today, apart from the youth, we are also here with the representation or representatives from the business community and also representatives from Bunge la Wananchi and even the county governments and the national government, so that we can understand what is this animal in the room called privatization. And I will come to that when I'm making my off-the-cuff remarks, so that you can understand what the government of Kenya is trying to do. To avoid listening to distortions from the naysayers, I am sure I will be capable enough to address some of your concerns and fears regarding the proposed actions that we want to take, and more particularly regarding the divestiture of most shares in Safaricom and also the privatization proposal for the Kenya Pipeline Company. The successful engagement with the Bunge la Wananchi in the last financial year, as I mentioned, could only be built upon. Feedback from that engagement and feedback from the membership of the Bunge la Wananchi, it was agreed that engagement must continue. The National Treasury's engagement with members of the business community is also not new. Under my watch, it has definitely been enriching in shaping my resolve to have in place more inclusive policies that allow more Kenyans to participate in public resource management. So, ladies and gentlemen, I wish to emphasize that this is not just a policy initiative, but rather it is a legal obligation which is rooted in our Constitution, Article 201A of the Constitution of Kenya, which mandates for public participation in all financial matters so as to enhance transparency, accountability, efficient utilization of resources, and value for money in the management of our public resources. At the National Treasury, we have come to the realization that the government alone cannot effectively respond to the multifaceted challenges facing our country, particularly on unemployment, gaps in skills development, digital literacy, entrepreneurship, and inclusive governance for a demographic dividend. In this regard, I have prioritized stakeholder participation as a key dimension of governance and one of the pillars for a sustainable development. We shall enhance collaboration with our stakeholders, including the youth, private sector, experts, civil society organizations, volunteers, and local communities, which is ever more critical in our public discourse. By forging partnerships and collaboration, the government will harness the ideas, skills, and resources to diverse stakeholders to better deliver services and policies in transformative ways and address the existing gaps in financial, human, and technical resources. I wish again to reiterate that the youth are a significant demographic of our country, making up over 75% of the population with a potential for contributing towards economic development of the country. And in this regard, their voices must be central to how we plan, allocate, and utilize our resources. This has therefore necessitated a shift in public financial management towards inclusive and participatory governance, where citizens, including youth, actively engage and participate in policy formulation and act as co-creators of government policies and services. Ladies and gentlemen, Kenya has adopted privatization as a strategic economic policy shift to promote efficiency in the economy by subjecting more services to market forces, to improve competitiveness, revenue generation, aid in fiscal consolidation pathway by reducing government spending on inefficient state corporations, and market development in deepening Kenya's capital market. So the objective of our privatization agenda is to ease the burden of governance of these institutions from the government to the private sector, who are better equipped for the market economy. The National Treasury will in this regard continue with sound macroeconomic policies to enhance resilience and create a conducive environment for the private sector to thrive, including the local business communities. This strategic response is anchored in our bottom-up economic transformation agenda and also on the fourth medium-term plan, MTP4. And these frameworks prioritize sectors with high youth employment potential, such as agriculture, micro, small, and medium enterprises, housing, healthcare, and of course, the digital and creative economy. And these sectors are not only engines of growth, but also platforms for innovation, entrepreneurship, and job creation for the youth. So over the recent past, the youth of this country have expressed themselves over important national issues, which include high cost of living, unemployment, and governance transparency. We still remember vividly 2024, more particularly what would have turned out as a dark day in this country. That was the 25th of June 2024. What the youth of this country were protesting about was the issue of high or rising cost of living. Number two, the youth were also complaining about unemployment. They're coming out of colleges with good certificates. Their parents have exchanged ng'ombe with papers, certificates. Papers which should help them better their lives. Papers that should help them get job opportunities. But alas, when they come out, there are no employment opportunities available. The other thing that the youth were complaining about was the issue of governance and transparency. The youth is telling us that they are not happy with the way we are using their resources, that we must change, that we must adopt transparency, that we must adopt accountability, that we must adopt prudent use of public resources. These concerns are valid. These concerns demand for immediate action. We cannot just sit and watch as students complain, as youth complain, and as they express themselves. And that is why the government must be committed to transforming the frustrations that our youth are going through into constructive dialogue and tangible action. We must dialogue with our youth. We must act on their demands. We must put to the best our ability to make sure that we transform these frustrations into productive engagement for the betterment and progress of our country. This forum, therefore, provides one of those perfect opportunities to provide our feedback on the necessary action from the government to address these challenges. So during this process, we will welcome positive critique of our public financial management systems and policies to shape the budget process. Your active engagement in this process will ensure efficient and transparent use of public funds, ensuring that resources are allocated to address youth empowerment and that the allocation achieves the intended objectives. So, ladies and gentlemen, during the launch of this process, I was elated and I was very happy to have received a written memorandum outlining some practical measures through which we can enhance financial support for students in tertiary institutions. And just to make you comfortable, just by engaging in that at that initial stages, I wish to report that if you go and you Google, I know you said you don't have bundles, but you can combine your strengths and Google National Treasury website. If you go and check the National Treasury website, and you look at the BPS, budget policy statement for 2026, which we will be tabling in Parliament in February. You will see that the allocation for Higher Education Loans Board is moving from what was provided in 2025, last year, or the year that is yet progressing, the current financial year. We provided 41 billion Kenya shillings for Higher Education Loans Board. That is proposed to increase by about 40% from 41 billion to 58 billion. And the university scholarship, that part which is not loan, is also proposed to increase from about 16 billion this financial year to 34 billion in the next financial year. That therefore means that the two, if you add 16 billion to 41 billion, that is 57, and is likely to move from 57 to 92 billion, the two figures put together. That is a reaction to the concerns that we have got from the students. Directly, we are responding. And by the way, the budget for education is going to increase with not less than 50 billion shillings in the next financial year. But we are working on the figures and looking at our budget to see if we can even make more resources available for education, because a society that does not care and invest in education of their population is a society that is destined to collapse. That's not a society that would make progress. So we have noted the feedback, which includes strengthening financial support for student financing, as I mentioned, reforming students' loan financing through fiscal policy, targeted student grant funding for vulnerable students, facilitate provision of affordable student accommodation, and I have taken note of the Eldoret National Polytechnic that requires more accommodation facilities, and establishing an emergency student support fund. This will be consolidated alongside the views from the other regions for consolidation during the preparation of the financial year 2026-27 and the medium-term budget process. Furthermore, we are aware of the financial strains facing our public institutions, which impact the quality of education and future prospects of our youth. Our strategy emphasizes increasing funding, infrastructure development, and curriculum reforms to equip students with skills relevant to the evolving job market, particularly in areas like artificial intelligence, data science, green technologies, and finally, vocational trades. So those are the areas that we are going to target. Artificial intelligence, because we are living in a global community which is moving very fast in terms of technology. We must keep pace. Data science is an area that we must invest in. Green technologies is another area of investment. And of course, the vocational trades. We must learn as a country to accept that vocational training is an integral part of any societal development. If you go to those countries which pride themselves of having developed, you will realize that employment is not a problem because people don't choose jobs. Today in Kenya, I would tell you, those of us who have tried to get services of plumbers, electricians, and the rest, I will tell you they are difficult to find today because of the affordable housing. I have a plumber who has been working for me for many years. When I wanted to get his engagement, he told me, Waziri, I'm sorry, I'm so busy, I have too much work. He used to be very idle. Today, that gentleman is not as idle as he used to be. I have to now plead with him to squeeze some time for me. That is the country that we should live in, where all trades have something, where all people with different expertise have something to do, have something to offer to the economy. And I will come back to that. Ladies and gentlemen, as you're aware, the government has been in the process of formulating 2026-27 financial year budget and also the medium term. We have, in this regard, prepared a draft 2026 budget policy statement containing the proposed policies and resource limitations for the period. That is the resource envelope. It's already on our website. This document has already been uploaded on the National Treasury website for public review and comments. I am looking forward to receiving valuable comments from you to inform its finalization before we submit it finally to Parliament by mid-February. I wish to urge for your concerted effort to enable us build a Kenya where opportunities are accessible to all, where youth are empowered to lead, and where our collective aspirations become reality. Together, we can forge a prosperous, inclusive, and resilient nation. On privatization, and I'm drawing to a close. I'm back in very few papers. Then it has sema machache off the cuff. So, ladies and gentlemen, on privatization, I have this to say. Privatization is often part of a broader process of structural reform. Privatization transactions are complex and require careful consideration of a number of issues. Well-designed and implemented privatization policies are essential to ensure credibility of reforms, to help governments achieve their objectives, and to create efficient and competitive markets for goods and services. Privatization of state-owned enterprises ushers in the private sector to participate in commercial activities that government-owned enterprises are undertaking. This is necessary because the private sector carries out commercial activities more efficiently than public sector, especially in competitive industry. By the way, I hope you are aware that you as individuals and your private businesses are included when I make reference to the private sector. It's not some strange animal somewhere. If you can do some small business, you are also in the space of the private sector. The benefits of privatization include, but is not limited to, the following. 1, lower prices, better quality of goods and services produced, wider choices for consumers, more innovation, minimal red tape in decision making, and of course, less corruption. That is the value and virtues which the private sector bring into business. Less corruption. To safeguard these benefits of privatization, the government has a social obligation to maintain a fair business environment through appropriate regulations and policies. Already, Kenya has developed a fairly robust regulatory environment with the Competition Authority of Kenya overseeing all sectors of the economy, supported by sector-specific regulators such as Communications Authority of Kenya. So privatization as a key tool to address the following 3 main or major economic issues. That is, balancing of government debts, public expenditure rationalization, and revenue raising, which we also call revenue mobilization. So we talk about revenue mobilization, we talk about expenditure rationalization, and we talk about government debt. In this regard, a robust program must be designed to address fiscal sustainability challenges by limiting government debt, constraining budget deficits, that is reducing budget deficit. And that is one of the questions that one of us asked, that what are we doing to make sure that we correct the messes of the past? 1, we are limiting government debt. 2, we are constraining budget deficits. And we are promoting counter-cyclical fiscal policy. Having pursued in the past few years fiscal consolidation, the policy has now reached optimal levels and hence cannot be pushed further. Kenyans are saying they are choking. We are overtaxing them. We cannot continue to tax Kenyans anymore. And what I mean here is not that you are not going to pay taxes. What I'm saying is that we cannot continue increasing taxation. If anything, now we must look for ways of reducing the tax burden on Kenyans. That is what you expect. You don't expect any more taxes to be loaded onto your payslip or your businesses. In fact, yesterday I said, well, in Kakamega, that if you are someone who has gone to school to learn matters taxation, one of the principles of taxation is that you target wealth. You target rich. After targeting wealth is when you can come to income. Income should attract the least tax. And finally, the segment that should not even be taxed is trade. Trade should never be taxed. So we should try as much as possible to reduce taxes on trade. Let people do business, make their money, and expand those businesses. You know, when you have more money, you expand business and you create jobs. That is the only way you can create jobs. By allowing people who are doing business or who are in trade to do business and expand their, make money, use that money to expand their businesses and employ more people. That is the only way to create jobs. And that is probably one of the areas we are not getting it right. That is why you find our unemployment levels continue to rise. We need to look at that area very carefully. And I've tasked my team at the National Treasury to see how we can make trade more friendly in terms of tax policies. You will agree with me that unlike taxation, privatization can never reduce private sector wealth. Taxation reduces people's wealth, but privatization does not. Instead, it encourages propensity to invest and enhances aggregate demand, which in the long run would widen the revenue base. So, privatization does not reduce wealth. Instead, it enhances wealth. Ladies and gentlemen, as I wind up, I want to just mention that our economy, the Kenyan economy, is at a critical turning point. And to sustain the economic achievements that have been realized thus far, both from macro and fiscal perspectives, like lower inflation, lower interest rates, currency stabilization, GDP growth, we must turn to innovative financing mechanisms to fund our infrastructure and public service projects. As the financial needs of the government continue to outpace our available public resources, private sector participation has become a critical tool in addressing infrastructure gaps, enhancing service delivery, and promoting sustainable development. There are many success stories. I know one of us spoke about cases where privatization has failed. And indeed, it is true. There have been previous attempts to privatize some government institutions with disastrous outcomes, like Uchumi Supermarket. But probably one of the reasons why Uchumi failed and others which have failed is because of the timing. Privatization, if you don't time it perfectly, then you definitely fail. But those privatizations that have been timed have succeeded. And let me give you examples. The first one is with regards to Safaricom. Safaricom was started in 1997 as a small department in government, very tiny. It was making profit, yes, but it was not a profit worth talking about. The government, therefore, made a decision at one point to privatize Safaricom. We are not privatizing Safaricom today. Safaricom was privatized several years back when we allowed 40% of the share ownership to be released to Vodacom. So the government then of President Moi retained 60%. 40% was sold out or divested and released to Vodacom through Vodafone Kenya, which is a subsidiary of Vodacom South Africa, which Vodacom South Africa is a subsidiary also of Vodafone UK. So the parent company is called Vodafone UK. Vodafone UK formed a subsidiary in South Africa called Vodacom. That subsidiary came and invested in Kenya and formed a subsidiary called Vodafone Kenya. So it is Vodafone Kenya which owns 40% today of Safaricom. 60% was still held by the government. Come 2008, President Kibaki saw it fit that the government was still too heavy in Safaricom and decided to release more ownership of Safaricom. But at that time, a decision was made to release it to people, to individuals, Kenyans and those international investors, but individuals. These individuals now own 25%. So Kibaki, Moi sold 40%, if we can use that word, selling liberally, and left us with 60 as a government through the National Treasury. I am the shareholder in Safaricom on behalf of the people of Kenya. After that, Kibaki came and released 25% to the people, both Kenyans and foreign investors. Now that took away 65% of ownership of Safaricom from the government. Today, the government has only 35%. But the kind of profit that we are now getting out of this 35, the dividend that Safaricom gives government, is much more than when we held 100% of Safaricom. Why? Because the private sector brought in efficiency and management style that has transformed Safaricom to be the largest and the most profitable company in East and Central Africa. There's not even a single company that makes more profit than Safaricom. So we have this 35, but we are still making much more money. But then, in business, you must always be dynamic and pragmatic. If you sleep and you say, yes, because now I'm making huge profits, that there should be no changes, this Safaricom must continue, must remain. Let me tell you, the telecommunication sector is very dynamic and changes every day. There is technological advancement. Safaricom must respond. Safaricom must invest in other regional markets. Already Safaricom has gone to Ethiopia. They have not broken even. They are still not making profit, but they have expanded into Ethiopia. Safaricom must be supported to get into other markets in the region. And that will require heavy investment. Even before we go to talk about government financial needs, let us talk about the Safaricom as a company, Safaricom Kenya, which we call Safaricom PLC. It requires more money. And let me tell you this. People who have knowledge in finance, like us, we know this for a fact. That when a company requires more resources, more capital injection, they will do what we call capital call. They will go to the shareholders and tell them, we need money, we need 50 billion, we cannot continue operating the way it is, we need 50 billion. And the moment they say they need 50 billion, the government of Kenya holding 35% will be required to contribute 35% of that 50 billion, which will translate to about 16, 17, 18 billion. Now, at that time, already a call has been made. A call is made to John Mbadi, who is the CS National Treasury. I am sitting at the National Treasury, and Safaricom needs 18 billion. And at that time, lecturers are in the streets protesting for low salary. They want their salary to be enhanced. Our doctors are in Upper Hill calling Duale to come down because there is no money. Our children need more money to go to school. There is no capitation. We need more money to go to SHA because the 13 billion that I put for primary health care is not enough. You require 4 billion more, like now I've been told we have to release 4 billion more to go to SHA for primary health care. 8 billion that we have put for emergency, chronic, and critical illnesses like cancer, diabetes is not enough. I am weighing these options. Do you think I will put money in Safaricom, or I will put money to pay lecturers, and put money to pay SHA, and put money to pay capitation? Which one, where will I put money? Will I put money for education of our children, or give money for more shares in Safaricom? And what then happens to Safaricom? This is what will happen. Because the government of Kenya as a shareholder has no money to put, the other shareholders will come in to put more money where the government would have put. And your shareholding will be diluted without paying you even a shilling, whether you like it or not. And it has happened with KCB previously. KCB, there was a call-up like that. Government didn't have money. Our share ownership came down automatically because there were other investors ready to put in money to get the company on its feet. That can happen with Safaricom. And we have seen it. And that is why we are saying we must release some of the ownership of shares in Safaricom. When we can be paid good sum of money, reasonable, decent, 204 billion is not pocket change. Even if we were to wait for that dividend from Safaricom, how much is it? 15% gives us about 7 billion per year. This 15% that we are releasing would give us about 7 billion at the current dividend payout rate per year. Divide 204 by 7, how many years is that? About 30 years is when we will get this money that we are getting today. That is before you take into consideration the time value of money. As accountants, we know what we call time value of money. 7 billion today is not the same as 7 billion 10 years from today. But let me come back a bit. I don't know whether I'm speaking to anyone in the room. Let me be a preacher today. Am I speaking to anyone in the room? Yes. Let me come back to a little. These young people who are coming out of colleges, why are they frustrated? It's because hakuna kazi. Let me tell you, our economy is growing at 4.6, 5%, fine. But let me tell you, Kenyan economy with the rising population that we have in this country, the growing population, and the people who are coming out of colleges and universities and other training institutions, and Kenya is leading in this region and almost in Africa in terms of human capital. We cannot create enough jobs with 5% economic growth. We have done our assessment, and for this country to create enough employment opportunities for our people, we must get 7 to 7.5 economic growth every year. But that will not happen with the current infrastructure. It can never. When you leave Nairobi, you are going to Malava through Eldoret. You have to plan for a day. You will take 1 full day on the road. A distance you should cover in 4 or 5 hours if the road was done. Between Nakuru, Naivasha, and Nakuru is a nightmare because we don't have infrastructure. I don't want today to go into politics of which region has better roads than another region. You know it. And we cannot continue lamenting about the past. Whatever you do, you will not correct it. It's like losing a parent. You'll never get any other. Others will just pretend. But a parent you only get once. Yes. If you left Malava with your fish going to Nairobi, you must spend more in preserving it because the road is terrible. When you arrive in Kenya, you are coming from other place and you arrive at JKIA. Those of us who travel, you see the shame of our airport. We must develop that airport. The president has spoken about it. We must do it. And that is why I'm happy working with Ruto, because he's a bold leader. I would rather you make a mistake as opposed to not trying. That you are always cautious. You don't want to take risks. Because some tribal people will shout on top of their voices that you are doing nothing. But let me not go there before my time of going there. I am still on privatization. Listen to me. JKIA requires about 260 billion to do. Can we borrow money to do it? Do you want us to borrow money to do our airport? 260 billion. Airport which will take about 20, 30 years to repay back. And that loan you take, you will pay in 5, 6 years. That is why SGR has not given us the economic benefits that we thought we would get. Because it is a 30-year project and we didn't even land with it where it should have landed. We have left it in someone's shamba. It's not making serious economic impact as it would have. What if it reached Malava? And we accessed Uganda and we accessed Rwanda, Burundi, and Central African Republic, where we should have targeted as a market. Which market is there in Naivasha? Nothing. So is it paying? Who will carry their load all the way from Malava to chase SGR in Naivasha? Irrigation. Irrigation, we have done our calculation, and it is clear, my friends, you are talking about cost of living. We still have food shortage in this country. We are not producing enough. We lack maize, those of us who eat ugali. In fact, if you tell a Luo and a lawyer, and I know there are enough in the room, if you give them food, lunch, without ugali, there is no food. Hiyo ni kama breakfast. Any food you bring without ugali, hiyo ni breakfast. Now, you ugali, the shortage of maize in this country is between 10 and 15 million bags every year. So sample this. Galana Kulalu, we have done experiment. Right now, we are harvesting. We have harvested, actually, from 1,500 acres that we did as an experiment. Each acre is producing between 30 and 35 bags. And in one year, you harvest twice. So that is 60 to 70 bags per year. 60 bags, let's take the lower. 60 bags. And if we do a dam along River Tana for Galana Kulali, if we do the dam, we will spend between 30 and 40 billion. By the 200, we can irrigate 200,000 acres. Each acre producing 60, multiplied by 200,000. That is 12 million bags of maize every year we will make. You have covered the shortfall of maize production in the whole country. That is why we want money. We need money to do serious investment. Lastly, One, two. I think anasema watu wamechoka. So let me try to move faster and conclude. So now let me finish. Now, energy sector. There is no economy that can grow without reliable energy. Here in Eldoret, you are a welder. You have got tender already. Someone has given you or has told you, I am bringing 100,000. Do my chairs, my bed, whatever it is, I'm coming to pick tomorrow. As you are in the process of doing it, welding, stima imepotea. Unaanza kusema, huyu Wandai ni mtu aina gani? Wandai must go. So utaanza kusema Wandai must go. Lakini what would Wandai do? If our power generation is only 3,000 megawatts, yet our demand is 10,000 megawatts for this economy to grow. So we must get energy, and energy is very profitable. Energy generation, energy transmission is profitable. So we need resources This money that we are going to get out of Safaricom, we don't want to use it to finance the budget. We are going to use it, put it in infrastructure fund. And then we now do what we call blended capital. We attract other investors, private investors. We tell them, here is JKIA, the cost is 200 billion. As a government, we have 50 billion. We want people who can give us the other 150 billion. This is how profitable it is. Over the next 30 years, you will be getting your income. We will also be getting some as government. So we combine our resources. We are not going to do this investment as government 100%. We'll just be putting a percentage to de-risk the project. So we take JKIA, we put some money there. We take Galana Kulalu, the government puts its money, private sector puts money. We go to a road which should be toll. Instead of doing the whole road from Rironi Mau Summit, as we have done it through PPP, we will put some government resources there. Maybe now to extend it, because this other one is concluded, to extend it to Malava through Eldoret, and the other one through Kisumu. We put some money as a government to lower the cost, so that motorists are also not overcharged. And then we bring the private sector and we work together. That is what President Ruto's government is planning to do, to take Kenya from where it is to where Singapore is. And Singapore was a journey that was begun a particular day, on a certain day. That journey has been walked and they have reached there. We can also walk it. We are also human beings, just like them. Let no one discourage us. Finally, on Kenya pipeline, those who are saying that the prices of fuel will be high, pipeline does not sell fuel. Listen to me. Fuel is being sold by business people. They use pipeline as a transport mechanism, logistics. And by the way, if pipeline is run with efficiency of private sector, the cost of transporting fuel will even be cheaper. And we still have regulatory authority. The price of fuel is every month being determined by a body called EPRA. There will be no adjustment upwards on the price of petrol or diesel or mafuta taa, just because pipeline, part of it is in the hands of the private sector. That cannot happen. And lastly, this thing you are talking about, security, our data, our what, let me ask you, you think shareholding controls the security of your data? Or the security of the country? When did you hear Safaricom calling me to go and make a decision on how Safaricom should store your data? And I'm a shareholder. There is the regulatory framework of the country which dictates that. It has nothing to do with shareholding. Let me give you one example. Airtel does the same things as Safaricom. Airtel has your data. The same way Safaricom has your data. It's only that Safaricom is bigger. But Airtel is also a telecommunication company. And it has your data. It has my data. I have an Airtel line. And Airtel, there's not even single ownership of government. It is owned externally. The shareholding is external. There is not even a Kenyan owning shares in Airtel. Why is it that our data and our secrecy is not being released or misused by Airtel, and only Safaricom will release our information when we release more shares? And Airtel is owned 100% by the foreigners. It's because our regulatory framework does not allow Airtel to play around with our data, our information, and our security. So whoever is telling you that is cleverly just using excuses to stop and frustrate the government agenda. Mimi nimemalizana na maneno official hiyo ya nini yote hiyo privatization. Budget, I heard you say, what do you have? What do you have? I didn't come here to be asked what I have for you. I came here to listen to you, to hear what you want me to put for you in the budget. Hiyo ndiye ninataka. Ni nini from Eldoret? And by the way, this team which is here, you will give us official and written memorandum. The business community, you are going to give us written memorandum. The youth, the bunge la wananchi, mseme which projects are lagging behind, which have been started, which you want us to complete in Eldoret. Sasa mimi nimetoka Suba, ninajua nini hapa Kesesa ama nini? Ama Kapsaret. Mnaniuliza which road am I coming to do? How do I know the roads here? Si nyinyi ndiye mnajua the road. Nyinyi ndiye mnajua wapi hakuna maji. Sasa mimi nitajuaje? Hiyo ndiye sababu nimekuja hapa nisikize. So muandike hizo muweke hapa. We go and we prioritize. Sawa sawa? You know, I think I understand you, because the way budget has always been done is that mtu anakaa hapo treasury floor, 14th floor. Anaandika vitu zake, alafu siku ya kusoma budget ni kama ni secret ingine. Hiyo sanduku sijui imebeba nini. Ninakuja nasoma vile iko. In fact, I told my people one day, some of them in the budget office, I look at them, mtu anatoka kwake Karen, anaenda 14th floor, ama 10th floor, treasury, jioni anarudi. When he wants to go for holiday, anaenda boma yake iko Kiambu ina border Nairobi, hajui chochote. Niliwaambia, I will be taking you for a week, ukae Samburu. Uone vile watu wanaishi before you come and compile the budget. So that when someone tells you that there is River Tana in Tana River, River Tana, where children are crossing to go to school the other side. Na wanaweka, imagine River Tana, mtu anaweka hizo the poles. Pole inawekwa hivi, another one inawekwa, mtoto anabalance hivi, anaanguka kwa maji. Anakuliwa na crocodile. This is real story. Hii is story ya to make you laugh. It's what I saw with my eyes. Real story. From independence to last year, ndiye sasa tumeanza kujenga daraja 2. Na cost of one is only 100 million. If you are just sitting in Nairobi and someone is bringing you that story, unafikiri ni mchezo. But if you go to the ground and you see, then you realize that this country, we are unfair sometimes to some of us. That money, just our taxes we pay, the whole country just goes to some specific areas because they produce presidents and deputy president and ministers for finance. That watu wengine ni kama waishi kwao, hiyo ni mbaya. Hata God will not forgive us. So wacha ni malizie, lakini wacha ni waulize. Si mnaangalia TV? Si mnasikia radio? Si mnaangalia WhatsApp na social media? Si mnaambiwa ati Ruto hajafanya kitu? Some of you are also clapping. Wacha niwaambie kitu kimoja. And listen to me. When Ruto became president of this country, you people don't know where Kenya has come from. IMF had told us that Kenya was among the 6 countries in Africa which were going to default in paying their debts. 6 countries in Africa were not going to be able to pay their debt in 2024, 2025. One of them was Kenya. All the 5 have defaulted. It's only Kenya which did not default. Ethiopia defaulted. Ghana defaulted. Si mnajua hiyo? Gambia defaulted. Mozambique defaulted. Chad defaulted. Kenya did not default. Na mjui kudefault ni nini? Let me tell you, if a country defaults, si kama wewe umedefault kulipa deni ya jirani yako. Iko tofauti. It is not even like defaulting in paying mshwari. Ama ile ingine inaitwa nini? Si kama ya Hustler Fund. Hiyo mnaweza cheka na wale wamekupea hiyo pesa. If you default in paying your loan, IMF and World Bank will be the first one to arrive in the country, because they also have given us loans. And when they arrive, they are taking you to a route we call Paris. My friend, this is what will happen. First, they will tell you, jiingiza kwa matope. Tutawatoa kwa matope. On condition. Number one, salary ya all civil servants, starting with the president, half. Staff in your public service, una reduce by half. Chiefs, mukona ngapi? 10,000, 5,000. MCA ni wangapi? 1,450 wards, half. Wabunge ni wangapi? 290 constituencies, half. Walimu ni wangapi? Sijui 400 and what thousand, half. Capitation mnaweka ngapi? Ni hivi, half. I am not giving you idle talk. That is how countries which have defaulted have been treated. Is that what you wanted for Kenya? When Ruto became president, inflation in this country was at 9.6%, going to double digit. When Ruto became president, my friend, we had forex reserves of only 3 months of import cover. Today it is 5.3 months, even beyond the target of 4 months. Today inflation is below 5%. Today interest rates, you say that interest rates are still high. It is true they are high, and we are working to make sure they are lowered further. But 1 year ago, average interest rates, if you went to the bank, was 17.2. Today it is 14.9. And we want it to go down to 12%, if not to single digit. Banks have been giving us loans like Shylocks. There was no difference. Because if banks can give you loan at 26, 28%, and Shylocks are also giving you at 30%, what's the difference? But we have managed some liability. And just allow me to say this, I know time imeenda. But I want to tell you, the people who are saying that the government is not doing anything. I went into that office, I lost weight in 2 months. Na hisi kitu ya kucheka, karibu nikufe. So you need not to laugh when I was about to die. Please, sympathize with me. The reason why I lost weight is because unaingia kwa ofisi, inafika 15th of the following month na hata hujamaliza kulipa mshahara ya wafanyikazi wa serikali. Deni inakuja, you don't know where to pay it from. That is what happened in 2024 when the shilling exchanged to the dollar at 160. Do you know what happened? We had a loan we were to pay in June 2024. And by February, Kenya did not know where they were going to get money to pay 260 billion euro bond. Somebody sat somewhere and said, my tenure is coming to an end. I don't care about that loan, which will come in 2024. If anything, I'm leaving office on the 9th or 10th of September, or I don't know which date exactly, of 2022. He didn't care. So when we sat with the president, we agreed we are not going to be that careless again. That is why last year, we decided to repay Eurobond of 2027. It's due in May 2027, lakini tulilipa last year. Again in September, we decided that the loan which is coming in 2028, we are also paying it. And we paid it last year, the loan of 2028. So for now, I will tell you, we can sit pretty that the only pressure we have is the loan of 2031. Not between now and 2031, we don't have that pressure anymore. That is the forward thinking of leadership. And no one will tell you that because they don't want you to hear. If Ruto wanted to be careless, he would say, 2028 is after my second term election. I will deal with it later. But we said no. Even if we make it second term or not, let whichever government is going to be there in 2028 not go through the same thing that this government went through when they came in 2022. And that is why I know when we start a conversation with Kenyans, those people who are talking about one term, you will realize how foolish you are when we start engaging with Kenyans and they get to understand what we have been able to do and they all say 2 term, utawachwa kwa mata. So, let me say it, and I want to repeat, and I'm not telling you things that I've cooked. I am talking about reality. Even these things they talk about SHA, it is brave, it is courageous. Kenyans, we must find a way of treating our sick, especially people who cannot afford. SHA may struggle. Everything started. Hata wewe ukinunua gari mpya, uta make mistakes, it will jack, it will fanya hivi, but mwishowe utajua kuendesha hiyo gari mpaka saa unaweka tu miguu hivi na gari inaenda peke yake. SHA has just begun. It is picking up. So what is this kelele? They made kelele about housing. Is it now not changing the landscape of this country? Look at what is happening across the country. Every town you go to, you see big buildings. You are wondering, what is this? Am I in Dubai? Where is this? Kenya is construction site because of housing. So what we need to do is just to think about middle income earners, and we help them come up kidogo. Mishahara yao iende juu kidogo. Hiyo tu. And then we get our second term. Na tutapata. Who told you I want to be Minister for Finance for only 2 years? Who said that? Kuna mtu alisema hiyo? And then, where is the alternative? Mimi nauliza, alternative iko wapi? The people who are talking about replacing President Ruto are people when they wake up, they think one region. Wanakula lunch, one region. Wanakula supper, one region. Hata usiku, hata wakilala kwa kitanda, hata nashangaa mabibi zao wanasema nini? Kama fikira yote iko kwa one region, saa ngapi wanafikiria hata mabibi zao? Mlima. And we love watu wa mlima. And they have made a contribution. There is no community which is more enterprising than the people from the mountain. And by the way, they have led this country with distinction, especially Mwai Kibaki. And we love them. We cherish them. We live in one country. But one individual should not make us have a negative opinion about a whole region. It's one rogue person who can wake up a leader who has even been deputy president of this country and start telling us that if you are coming from another region, you cannot go to a national school. And the school is called national in their region. And yet, let me ask you, you think people of Mount Kenya or Central are the ones who have built Alliance or Mango? Is it the Luos and the Luyas who have built Maseno? We have all contributed. The taxes from Western Gishu have built Maseno, Maranda. Those are national schools. Alliance, Mangu, Lenana, national schools. Sasa mtu anaongea kama mtoto. Hata unashangaa huyu akili yake. In fact, I am sympathizing with people who are following that gentleman. I am sympathizing with you. If you are doing it on tribal, woe unto you. Shame on you. How do you support someone who wants to divide this country? And we know the consequences. Remember 2007, what we went through. In my neighborhood, next to my home, a woman came with a head, kichwa, peke yake ya bwana yake. Ajui mwili ingine iko wapi. Because of 2007, we don't want to go back there. Leaders who are still having such mindset, I want to tell you, your time is up. This Kenya does not belong to you. In fact, you don't belong to this country. You should find your own country to live in. This country is for people with progressive minds. People who are thinking about tomorrow, not tribal bygones. Let me wind up. I know in this congregation, tuko na watu wa chama changu. My party. My party. My party. My party remains ODM. And by the way, I love what were UDA. Lakini, my party is not UDA. My party is ODM. And just listen to me. We are working together with UDA, but we are in ODM. And my party leader is Dr. Buruding, and I want to tell those who are in ODM. What has made ODM what it is today is the respect that we have given the party leadership of ODM. There is no single individual in this world who has no weaknesses. Even our departed hero had his weaknesses. Those of us who lived or worked closely with him know. But anybody has a weakness. Our role as a party is to fortify and strengthen our new party leader, who is our symbol of unity. But again, let me tell you what we're ODM. Our only route to leading this country as a party is through working with William Samoei Ruto. We have no any other choice. And by the way, if you are out here and you are speaking another language, you go to Nyanza. The people of Nyanza have already decided. They are giving Ruto a second term. And once tukimalizia hiyo yake, tukimalizana na Ruto, in 2032, hata sisi tuko tayari kuongoza hii nchi. Kwa hivyo, mimi ninataka kuwasihi watu wa UDA. Wakati ikifika, 5 years is not a long time. 6 years is not a long time. Tutawapea, we will give you second term. We will give Ruto second term, not just because he's Ruto, but because of what we have seen he has done and how he has tried to unite this country. Which president anywhere in the world can take Ministry of Finance and give someone who did not campaign with him? It's only the courage of one person. He's the only one who has a rare courage. And for that reason, some of us are ready. Remember, some of us have been salivating to also be able to manage the resources of this country. And 17 ministers have been in office. Ngoja. 17 ministers have been in office. The 18th one, ndiye sasa amekuwa Mbadi. In this country, we have had so many attorney generals. And the region where I come from produces some of the best brains in the legal field. But since independence, the first attorney general who has come from the region where I come from is Dorcas Oduor, appointed by William Ruto. And let me tell you, we have agreed as ODM. ODM is in Nyanza. ODM is in Western. ODM is in the coast. ODM is in Northeastern. ODM is in Turkana. ODM is in Masai. We are remaining as one united whole because we know our strength is in unity. The Luyas and the Luos and the coastal people, we must remain together. And the party ODM does not belong to the Luo community. Luos who are here, remember, Luyas are supporting ODM. Remember, Turkanas are in ODM. Remember, Masais are in ODM. Remember, even Kalenjins were originally in ODM before they went to UDA. So we are a national party led by national leaders. Oburu will remain our leader. The time will come when we are going for presidency as a party. We are going to come out very strongly, and you will pick the best based on performance, track record, and all that is required of a leader, and we will go for it. Otherwise, I want to end there. Ninataka